You're tuned into the Growth Ceilings Podcast, the show for builders, dreamers, and leaders ready to break limits and grow beyond what they thought possible.
Welcome to the Growth Ceilings Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Lovelady, professional EOS implementer. EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. This show brings together real stories from leaders who've pushed through barriers, shaped their organizations, and grew through the decisions that defined their path. Today, I'm joined by Jamie Turner. He is a keynote speaker, best-selling author, professor, and founder of UnspokenRules.live, and he's also a CNN contributor. His work has helped leaders around the world understand marketing, communication, and the science behind how people make decisions. He has a talent for taking complex topics and making them clear and actionable. I've been looking forward to this conversation. Jamie, thank you for being here.
Hey, Jim, great to be here. Glad to hang out with you. Looking forward to the conversation today.
All right, let's start at the beginning. What first pulled you into marketing and communication?
You know, I grew up in a family of advertising executives. My father was a madman. So a madman is somebody who worked in the 1960s on Madison Avenue, which was the epicenter of marketing during that era. And I watched him, and every night he would come home to dinner, and I'd say, how'd work go? And he said, I loved it. I said, really? What'd you love about it? He says, every day is different. I learn something new every day. I love learning, and it's just a fabulous career. So I said, let me dive into that. Went into the University of Texas, came out of there, went up to New York City to work in marketing up there, and then moved down to Atlanta a short while later, and have been here ever since.
That's fantastic. When you look at companies today, what mistakes continue to repeat?
You know, probably not doing things that are relevant. The secret to marketing is to get inside the mind of your prospect. And what I mean by that is to understand what it is they're actually buying. If you think about what are you buying when you go to Starbucks, you're not just buying a cup of coffee, you're actually buying coffee as well as the experience of the barista, the experience of the sofa, the experience of the decor, the smell, the music, all of that adds up to the entire experience. And so a lot of times what people without a lot of experience in marketing do is they go in and they say, what are the benefits and features of our product? And let's just talk about that. Actually, what you need to do is go the reverse and get inside the mind of your prospect and figure out what is it that they're actually buying. And let's market that instead of just our features and benefits. So basically, the big secret is get inside the mind of your prospect, understand their hidden reasons for buying things, and then nurture that and bring them towards your company, your product, or your service. And that's a great way to grow revenues and increase profits.
You teach the science behind persuasion. What do leaders overlook?
And actually, I'm going to shift from marketing to leadership, related topics. But if you think about the idea of leadership, what is it that a great leader does? A leader understands that people always act in their own self-interest. Now, there are times, of course, where we're altruistic or we're helping others. I'm not discounting that. But in the end, if you want to really relate to somebody and lead them someplace and have a good connection with somebody, you have to understand what's motivating them and what's driving them. And by leveraging that, you can then have a win-win scenario. Let me give you an example. When I used to hire employees, I used to say, what is it that you want to be doing in 10 years? Half of them would say, I don't know, I've never thought about that, which is an issue in and of itself. The other half would say, you know what, I want to own my own business, or I want to be running my own company, or I just want to be, leaving the office at 5 and going home, whatever the answer was. By understanding what was on their mind and what was motivating them and what was in their self-interest, I was able to then change how I led them so that they would step up to the plate. As an example, if I knew somebody wanted to ultimately be an entrepreneur, I could go into them and say, hey, I need you to work on this project for me. Here's why it matches your long-term plans to be an entrepreneur. This project happens to be very entrepreneurial in scope, and you're going to learn a lot of techniques that you're going to have to learn in order to accomplish the task and then set yourself up for future leadership as an entrepreneur. So having that understanding that people work in their own self-interest, and if you understand what they're interested in, then you can leverage what you're doing with them and kind of build a bridge of commonality to them and work with them together so that you can then take them through the journey that they want to do and also what you need them to do with your company as a leader.
Moment changed your approach to communication?
Probably understanding that concept of getting inside the mind of the people you're talking to. When I think of, let's talk about two different kinds of communication, although they both have the same umbrella. Whether you're talking one-on-one to somebody, you're a team leader and you need to communicate with somebody, or you're talking in marketing communications, it goes back to that key idea. Understanding what motivates and drives the consumer or the person on your team that you're talking to can help you communicate better. One other thing while we're talking about communication that's important is when you are trying to lead somebody, let's say one-to-one, and you're mentoring somebody, or you're in charge of a team or whatever it is, your job is to understand that other person's style of communication and to match their style. And so what I mean by that is if somebody is a direct communicator is somebody who gets to the point quickly, sticks to the facts, talks in plain language, then you need to match that style of communication in order to connect with them. On the other hand, if somebody is more empathetic in their communication style and they're much more feeling in their communication style, then you need to match that and talk to them using their language. Talk about feelings, talk about big picture things, talk about personalities, things like that. So ultimately, when it comes down to communication on the one-to-one or a team leader style of communication, you're really talking about understanding what's on their mind, point number one, and point number two, changing your communication style to match theirs so that you can then build that better connection and actually have a better connection with them as you're talking to them about what you need them to do.
That's really in the context of leaders and their people, correct?
Yeah, it really is.
Let's shift this to audience behavior. What do leaders often misunderstand about their audience?
Again, going back to the idea that what people are doing a lot of times is figuring out how they need to speak to the audience that they're talking to. And the secret to that, of course, is, again, trying to figure out which direction is going to motivate that audience to change their behavior. So this works in marketing, it works in all forms of communication, it works with all audiences, is really, again, going back to that understanding that this person or this audience responds well to these triggers, these conversion principles, these things that make them and help them decide to change their behavior to behave the way that you're looking for them to behave.
Take me through how to cut through noise in a meaningful way.
Yeah, the best way to cut through noise. Well, let me ask you a question on that. Do you want to talk about cut through noise when you're acting as a leader in a team, or really more marketing oriented? How do you cut through the noise from a marketing perspective if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner who wants to cut through the noise that way? I'm assuming that's what you'd like to talk about.
Let's go in that direction, yes.
Okay, that sounds great. Here's something that I do that you have to have a certain amount of nuance in order to handle it properly. The average consumer, there's varying estimates, but the average consumer sees anywhere from 20 to 40,000 messages in any given day. And those messages come in the form of advertising, all forms of advertising, social media, signage, billboards, everything like that. So your goal when you're having to break through that clutter is to try to figure out how to do something that actually resonates with them and first and foremost catches their attention. And the way you catch somebody's attention is by actually doing a message that has emotion tied to it. The emotion can either make you cry or make you laugh. But the one thing you don't want to do is bore them to death, because that'll never work. So if you think about Super Bowl commercials, every single Super Bowl commercial, almost every single one, about 95% of them, will either try to make you laugh or make you cry. And the reason for that is because marketers know the way to break through the clutter and the way to cut through things is to get people to have an emotional connection with your message. So if you just say something boring, people are going to forget it. And we've all had ads that we see that are boring and we just forget them. But if we see an ad that makes us laugh or see it makes us cry, that creates a trigger in our brain, which which is an emotion, and memories are created from emotions. You have to have an emotion in order to create a memory. And when a memory is created, that can drive an intent to purchase. So the process is create an emotion or establish an emotion. That creates a memory about a brand or a product or a service. And then that ultimately leads to intent to purchase, which is I'm in the grocery store and I'm seeing this product on the shelf and I go, you know what? I either overtly remember seeing the commercial or I just remember it subconsciously. But that memory helps me reach for that product instead of the competitor product. So it's all about essentially breaking through the clutter, creating an emotional connection, and then having that happen for the consumer so that they can go ahead and behave on that emotional connection.
So let's share with the audience what you believe are the trends that are going to shape marketing in the next few years.
Yeah, a couple of big trends. Of course, we're going to talk about AI on all of that. And AI is transforming marketing. But the overlay on that is really essentially that marketing is going to be able to be much more personalized and really one-to-one marketing. So my last book was called An Audience of One, which is all about going in and understanding through data and analytics how to analyze data and then approach people with what feels like a one-to-one message. And there's a lot of different ways that's going to happen. Right now, we have 1,450 pieces of data about any given individual. We know what airline you fly. We know whether you like white wine or red wine, or if you're a beer drinker. We know if you like football versus soccer. We know if you like to travel to Europe or to Asia. We know what your bank account is and information is. We know what car you drive. We actually even know when you're going to buy your next car so that we can start going in and marketing to you a year in advance so that you're getting messages about buying a car a year in advance and you're going, well, I'm a year out. We know you're a year out, but we're planting the seed for you to buy a Toyota or a Honda or a Lexus a year ahead of when you're actually going to buy it because we have all that data. So the biggest change that's going on right now in marketing and everything in terms of business is using data to follow behaviors and then predict where people are going to go in their behavior and be able to market to them based on those predictions. And as AI gets more and more involved in it and the analytics gets more and more fast-paced and nuanced, we're going to be able to do more and more messages to you that feel like they're just targeting you, but really what we're targeting is groups of people like you, but you're going to feel like it's specific to you. All of that's going to happen because of the transformative power the data brings to the table when we use it for marketing nowadays.
How should the entrepreneur, the business owner, think about brand as they expand?
Brand creates, remember earlier I was talking about how emotions create memories, memories create intent to purchase. Brands are tied to that. A brand has an emotional component to it. Let's do a test here. For all of your listeners and people watching this right now, if I talk about what words or associations you have with Pepsi, they're probably not that present in your mind. They're probably things like Britney Spears or Michael Jackson or Lady Gaga, stuff like that. If I say, tell me the words and associations you have with Coca-Cola, that goes much deeper because Coca-Cola has said, we're about America, we're about family, we're about happiness, we're about connection, we're about Santa Claus, we're about polar bears, all of those things that actually make Coca-Cola go so much deeper than Pepsi does. And it's why Coca-Cola is the number one soft drink brand. And now Pepsi is actually down to fourth now, if you can believe it. It goes Coca-Cola, Dr. Pepper, Diet Coke, and then Pepsi. The reason for that is because Pepsi tried to leverage sort of an intellectual side of branding, where Coca-Cola went much deeper, got into the underlying emotions behind intent to purchase, and said, we're going to leverage that by talking about family, happiness, joy, all of those things that you associate with Coca-Cola. And it's created a lot more brand preference for Coca-Cola than for Pepsi because they leveraged that technique.
You gave the stack a few moments ago, and I think that's probably news to some of our listeners. What, in your opinion, did Dr. Pepper do right?
It goes back to what we were talking about a minute ago, which is they did a campaign that had an emotional component to it that made you laugh. You may not remember off the top of your head Dr. Pepper commercial, but I guarantee if I showed it to you, go, oh, it's that one. I get it. Yeah, that is pretty funny. And it's basically an entire campaign that was designed to get people to laugh and to get Dr. Pepper to stand out in a crowd. You were asking earlier, how do you break through the clutter? Dr. Pepper did that through humor. And of course, that's spread not only on TV and other media, but it goes into social media and digital marketing. If we talk about the data being used by marketers, then we know that Dr. Pepper went in and said, okay, where are the people who are switchers, what's called a switcher, somebody who would switch from one soft drink to another. And we have that data to understand the personality characteristics of those kinds of people. And then we send targeted ads to those people. Why? Because we know the Coca-Cola, the deeply embedded Coca-Cola user, isn't going to switch gears and switch over to Dr. Pepper. But we also know there's a segment of the population who wants to try something new, wants to try something different, will respond positively to messaging that we're doing for Dr. Pepper. And we use that as a way to go out and target those people and get them to switch from Pepsi or Coca-Cola or Diet Coke over to Dr. Pepper. So to summarize all of that, it's two things: the power of creative that they did with their campaigns that had an emotional component combined with the use of data to go target people with those emotionally charged ads that made people laugh so that they would ultimately get to the store and say, you know what, I think I'll try Dr. Pepper this time instead of Coca-Cola.
That's great. Thank you. You talked about AI briefly a few moments ago. What impact do you see artificial intelligence having on marketing and messaging?
Mostly in what's called predictive analytics. So we have analytics that can look backwards and we go, okay, we know that our customer base prefers buying a blue widget as opposed to a green widget. We've got all that data. But what AI is going to be able to do is look through reams of data that humans, it just would be too complex or too overwhelming, and find things where we can start saying, hey, we can predict behaviors, these customer segments. So AI is going to be able to look at all that data and say, these people are always going to buy blue widgets. Don't try to sell them a green widget. These people are going to buy green widgets. And we know that because we've been able to look at the data at a nuanced level that you weren't able to before. Now we are, so we can predict the behavior of people moving ahead based on what we know about them from the past. So it's really an exciting time to be in marketing and to be dipping your toe in the world of following the data to sell more stuff to more people at a higher profit margin, which is what marketing is all about.
So I'll get you out of here on this. What advice do you share with younger marketers who want to grow?
You know, two things. One is always stay fresh with new information. I worked with my father. As I mentioned, he was a madman. And even when he was in his late 60s and 70s, I saw him stay current on what was going on. And that is absolutely relevant for anybody over the age of 40. For those of us who are, for those of you who are under 40, you're already current with all the latest trends. So it comes a little more naturally. But I'll give you a piece of advice on that front. The predictor of your success is not about IQ or where you went to school. The predictor of success is resilience and communication skills. Those two things, resilience being pushing through the bad times, communication skills meaning being able to connect with others, those two things are going to have a greater impact on your career than where you went to school or anything else that you've got, or your IQ or anything else. So just remember, if you're under 40, it's about resilience and communication skills. If you're over 40, it's about staying young, fresh, and relevant so you can bring your wisdom into the new technologies that are out there and make sure you leverage those combined with the wisdom you're bringing to the table.
Well, you certainly have given us a lot of great insight. Thank you for your time today, Jamie, and for the clarity you bring to topics that many leaders struggle to understand. This will help a lot of our audience. And thanks to everyone for listening. You've been with us on the Growth Ceilings podcast. Follow the show and share this episode with someone who might benefit. I'm your host, Jim Lovelady. We'll see you the next time. Thank you.
You've been watching the Growth Ceilings podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who's ready to grow.